Hey guys, tonight we're traveling back over 2,000 years to the scorching sands of ancient Nubia, where you're about to be born into one of the most powerful royal families Africa has ever known. Picture this. The year is around 50 BCE, and you're emerging into a world where golden pyramids pierce the desert sky, where the Nile runs backwards compared to Egypt, and where your future subjects mine more gold than anywhere else on Earth. You probably won't survive the politics, the wars, or even the elaborate beauty treatments involving crocodile dung that await Ubate. At least you'll die fabulously wealthy. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment letting me know where you re-listening from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The royal birthing chamber and Meru smells of myrrh and anticipation as you take your first breath. You're not just any baby, you're a Kandike in the making, destined to rule the kingdom of Kush with absolute authority. The walls around you are painted with scenes of your ancestors defeating Roman legions. A gentle reminder that you come from a long line of people who do and take nonsense from anyone, including Julius Caesar's successors. Your mother, Queen Amanirenas, cradles you with hands still calloused from wielding a sword in battle just months before your birth. She is the kind of woman who negotiates peace treaties in the morning and practices archery in the afternoon, because apparently maternal multitasking was already perfected in ancient Africa. The attending physicians examine you carefully, noting the strong grip of your tiny fingers, a promising sign that you'll one day hold the crook and flail of Kushite royalty with the same determination. The palace around you buzzes with activity as news of your birth spreads through the city. Merchants pause their haggling over ivory and gold to offer prayers for the new princess. Temple priests begin calculating the astrological significance of your arrival, cross-referencing star charts that blend Egyptian, Greek, and uniquely Nubian astronomical traditions. Your birth is recorded in Meroitic script, that curiously undeciphered writing system that will frustrate archaeologists for millennia to come. Outside your nursery window, the kingdom stretches endlessly southward. This is no provincial backwater. Kush controls trade routes that connect sub-Saharan Africa with the Mediterranean world, making your family wealthier than most Roman senators could dream of being. Historians still argue whether the kingdom of Kush was more African or more Egyptian in character. But honestly, you're too busy being a demanding infant to care about such academic debates. Your royal quarters are furnished with ebony beds, ivory-inlaid chests, and textiles dyed with expensive murals. Even as a newborn, you're surrounded by luxury that would make Cleopatra jealous. The servants who tend to you speak multiple languages, Meroitic, Egyptian hieroglyphs, and Greek, because cosmopolitan sophistication is just part of growing up royal in ancient Nubia. As the weeks pass, you develop the robust health typical of Kushite royalty. Your diet includes the finest foods the kingdom can provide. Dates from palm groves along the Nile, honey from desert apiaries, and milk from cattle that graze in the seasonal pastures south of the capital. Your nursemaids tell you stories of your great-great-grandmother, Queen Shanaktakit, who ruled independently and built monuments that still stand, weathering sandstorms and centuries with typical Kushite stubbornness. The tattoos and scarification that will mark your royal status are still years away. But already the palace artists are sketching designs that will one day adorn your skin. These aren't just decorations, they're badges of office, spiritual protection, and artistic statements all rolled into one. Your future body art will tell the story of your reign before you even speak a word.
Your toddler years blur past in a haze of educational activities that would exhaust modern children but seem perfectly normal in your royal bubble. By age 4, you're already learning to read Meroitic hieroglyphs, those mysterious symbols that combine Egyptian influences with uniquely Nubian innovations. Your tutors are patient but firm, understanding that a future queen can't afford to be illiterate in any of the 3 writing systems used throughout your kingdom. The palace school where you spend your mornings occupies an entire wing of the royal complex, its walls decorated with maps showing trade routes stretching from the Mediterranean to the heart of Africa. You trace these routes with your small finger, memorizing the locations of gold mines, ivory sources, and the seasonal patterns that determine when merchant caravans arrive. Geography isn't just an academic subject for you, it's the foundation of your future economic power. Your archery lessons begin at sunrise, when the desert air is still cool enough for concentrated practice. The bow crafted for your small hands is made from the finest wood available, probably imported from regions far to the south where different tree species grow. Your instructor, a grizzled veteran of multiple border skirmishes, teaches you that accuracy matters more than strength. A well-placed arrow can end a war before it begins. He tells you, though you're more interested in hitting the painted targets than contemplating military strategy, the temple training starts gradually, with simple ceremonies and basic prayers to ape the lion-headed war god who protects your dynasty. You learn to burn incense properly, to recite invocations without stumbling over the ancient syllables, and to maintain the dignified posture expected of royal participants in religious rituals. The priests who guide your education are walk-in libraries of theological knowledge, preserving traditions that blend Egyptian, Nubian, and Greek religious practices into something uniquely. Mathematics comes naturally to you, probably because it's taught through practical applications rather than abstract theory. You calculate tribute payments, measure grain distributions, and figure out how many cattle need to be sacrificed for various festivals. Your tutor uses an abacus made from polished stones and precious metals even. Your school supplies are luxurious enough to bankrupt ordinary families. Physical education goes beyond archery to include swimming in the palace pools, horseback riding on specially trained mounts, and basic combat training with wooden weapons. You're not expected to become a warrior like some of your more militaristic ancestors, but self-defense skills are considered essential for any member of the royal family. The trainers who work with you have served in real battles, and their scars tell stories of conflicts with Romans, rival kingdoms, and occasionally rebellious provincial governors. Language instruction occupies much of your afternoon schedule. Besides Meroitic, you're learning Egyptian hieroglyphs for diplomatic correspondence, Greek for trade negotiations, and Latin because your kingdom's relationship with Rome requires constant communication. Your pronunciation of Latin is probably better than most Roman provincial governors achieve, though your tutors wisely avoid mentioning this fact during lessons. The palace library becomes your favorite retreat as you begin reading independently. The scrolls and tablets stored here contain everything from military histories to medical texts, astronomical observations to poetry. Some documents describe the legendary Queen Candace, who supposedly met Alexander the Great, though historians still argue whether this encounter actually happened or represents wishful thinking by patriotic Kushite chroniclers. Your education includes practical economics through supervised visits to the royal treasuries. You learn to distinguish between different grades of gold, to evaluate the quality of ivory tusks, and to assess the relative value of exotic animals brought by southern traders. These are UNG's academic exercises understanding Your kingdom's wealth is crucial for any future ruler who wants to maintain power and prosperity. Music and dance lessons round out your cultural education. You learn to play the harp and other instruments that accompany royal ceremonies, and you master the intricate steps of ritual dances performed during religious festivals. Your music teacher, an elderly woman who served your grandmother, tells you that rhythm and melody can soothe diplomatic tensions just as effectively as military threats. Evening lessons focus on history and genealogy, drilling you on the names, achievements, and failures of previous Kushite rulers. You memorize the regnal years of dozens of kings and queens, learning which ones expanded the kingdom, which ones lost territory, and which ones managed to die peacefully in their beds rather than in battle.
Your 13th birthday arrives with the weight of tradition pressing down on your shoulders like the elaborate golden jewelry you're now required to wear during formal ceremonies. The coming-of-age rituals that await you are in simply symbolic celebrations. They re-transformative experiences, designed to prepare your mind, body, and spirit for the responsibilities of eventual queenship. The preparations alone take months, involving consultations with priests, astronomers, and that one elderly court advisor who remembers every detail of your mother's initiation decades earlier. The first ceremony takes place at dawn in the Temple of Apedmok, where the lion-headed god's statue seems to watch your every movement with those intimidating carved eyes. You've practiced the ritual purification countless times, but performing it for real feels different, more serious, more permanent. The sacred oils that anoint your skin smell of frankincense and myrrh, expensive imports that remind everyone present of your kingdom's vast trading networks. Your ceremonial garments include textiles so fine that touching them feels like caressing water. And the golden threads woven throughout catch the early morning light streaming through temple windows. The scarification ceremony follows ancient protocols that blend pain with spiritual significance in ways that modern people would find either fascinating or horrifying, depending on their tolerance for traditional body modification. The patterns carved into your skin aren't random decorations. They read a complex symbolic language that identifies your royal lineage, your spiritual commitments, and your readiness to assume adult responsibilities within Kushite society. The priests who perform this ritual have hands steadier than surgeons, and their knowledge of proper healing techniques ensures that your scars will heal into the precise geometric patterns required by royal tradition. Your first official hunt takes place in the desert regions south of Meru, where lions still roam freely and the skills you've learned with bow and spear get tested against real prey rather than practice targets. The hunting party includes experienced warriors who can intervene if things go badly. But the expectation is that you'll demonstrate competence rather than just symbolic participation. The lion you eventually track and kill isn't particularly large, but its death marks your transition from student to practitioner, the deadly skills that royal authority sometimes requires. The diplomatic ceremony introduces you to the complex world of international relations that will dominate your adult life. Representatives from Egypt, Rome, and various tributary kingdoms arrive bearing gifts and formal recognition of your new status as an adult member of the Kushite royal family. You deliver your first official speech in multiple languages, demonstrating the linguistic skills that years of education have developed. The Roman delegate looks particularly uncomfortable, probably because his government's relationship with your kingdom involves more military tension than anyone wants to acknowledge publicly. Your first official religious duties begin with the Festival of Isis, where you serve as one of the primary celebrants in ceremonies that attract pilgrims from throughout the region. The goddess Isis has special significance in Kushite religion, representing both motherhood and royal authority in ways that perfectly suit your position as a future queen. The rituals you perform are ancient beyond memory, preserved through oral tradition and ceremonial practice that connects you directly to countless generations of previous rulers. The wealth ceremony reveals the true extent of your family's resources for the first time. You're given access to detailed inventories of the royal treasuries, learning exactly how much gold, ivory, and exotic merchandise your kingdom controls. The numbers are staggering here. Family's wealth rivals or exceeds that of most Roman senators. And the economic power you'll eventually inherit could reshape the political balance of Northeastern Africa if used strategically. Your first military review puts you in command of a ceremonial unit, testing your ability to give clear orders and maintain discipline among professional soldiers. The troops assigned to you are veterans who fought in real battles. Their respectful but critical evaluation of your leadership skills provides valuable feedback about areas needing improvement. Historians still argue whether Kushite queens were expected to be active military commanders or primarily ceremonial figures, but your training suggests that personal combat leadership remained important. The astronomy ceremony takes place on a cloudless night when the constellations align according to calculations. It's made months in advance. You demonstrate your knowledge of celestial movements, seasonal patterns, and the astrological factors that influence royal decision-making throughout the ancient world. The star charts you consult combine Egyptian, Greek, and uniquely Nubian astronomical traditions, reflecting your kingdom's position at the crossroads of multiple civilizations. Your final initiation involves a solo retreat in the desert, where you spend 3 days and nights alone with minimal supplies. It's contemplating the responsibilities that await you. This isn't meant to be a survival challenge, it as a spiritual experience designed to clarify your understanding of royal duty and personal identity. The visions and insights you experience during this retreat remain private, shared only with your personal spiritual advisor. Your marriage negotiations begin when you're barely 16, because apparently ancient diplomacy doesn't wait for anyone to finish their awkward teenage phase. The suitors under consideration are unchosen for their charming personalities or devastating good looks. They re-evaluated based on the military alliances, trade agreements, and territorial advantages their families can provide. Your mother reviews potential candidates with the same methodical precision. She once used to plan military campaigns, weighing each option's strategic benefits against the political risks of various matrimonial alliances. The first serious proposal comes from a Ptolemaic prince whose family controls parts of Upper Egypt, offering the tantalizing possibility of reuniting territories that were once part of a single Kushite empire. His delegation arrives with gifts that include trained leopards, rare spices, and scrolls containing detailed maps of Nile, fortifications that could prove invaluable if diplomatic relations with Rome deteriorate further. You meet this potential husband during carefully supervised encounters that reveal his adequate education, reasonable military experience, and complete inability to make interesting conversation about anything except hunting and horse breeding. A competing proposal emerges from a Blemi chieftain whose tribal confederation controls crucial trade routes through the eastern desert regions. His offer includes access to Red Sea ports, alliances with nomadic groups that could provide cavalry support during military campaigns, and a bride price so substantial that accepting it would fund several years of temple construction projects. The cultural differences between your sophisticated urban court and his semi-nomadic lifestyle present obvious challenges. Though his personal reputation as a warrior and leader suggests that the marriage might produce competent heirs, Roman interest in your matrimonial status manifests through unofficial channels, with various senators and provincial governors hinting that the right marriage alliance could resolve ongoing border tensions between your kingdoms. The Romans are characteristically blunt about their motivations. They want to neutralize Kushite military threats through diplomacy rather than expensive warfare. And marrying you to a Roman ally would serve their strategic interests perfectly. Your mother finds these suggestions amusing, since Roman military performance in previous Kushite conflicts has been less than impressive. The most intriguing proposal comes from an Ethiopian prince whose kingdom controls the headwaters of the Blue Nile, offering possibilities for cooperative water management projects that could benefit both regions during drought years. His education includes Greek philosophy and Roman engineering techniques, suggesting that a marriage alliance might facilitate technological exchanges that could strengthen your kingdom's infrastructure. Historians still argue whether ancient African kingdoms maintained regular diplomatic contact with each other, but your correspondence with this prince suggests that such relationships were more common than surviving records indicate. Your personal preferences matter less than political considerations, but you develop a slight fondness for the Ethiopian prince after exchanging letters, written in multiple languages, and discovering his unexpected sense of humor. His descriptions of court life in his mountain kingdom include amusing anecdotes about diplomatic protocol failures and the challenges of maintaining royal dignity, while dealing with temperamental elephants used in ceremonial processions. You appreciate his ability to find humor in the absurdities of royal life, since your own existence involves plenty of similarly ridiculous situations. The negotiations drag on for months, with each potential suitor's family demanding increasingly specific terms regarding dowry payments, territorial rights, succession arrangements, and the religious ceremonies that would accompany any eventual wedding. Your diplomatic scribes work overtime, producing draft agreements that attempt to satisfy multiple parties while protecting your kingdom's essential interests. The complexity of these negotiations rivals modern international treaties in their attention to minute details and potential loopholes. Marriage customs in your kingdom require extensive prenuptial rituals that could take weeks to complete properly, involving purification ceremonies, astrological consultations, and elaborate gift exchanges between the participating families. The logistics of organizing such an event while maintaining normal governmental functions present significant challenges, particularly since your mother insists on personally reviewing every aspect of the ceremonial preparations. Your future wedding threatens to become the most expensive and time-consuming diplomatic event in recent Kushite history. The political implications of your marriage extend far beyond personal happiness or family alliances, potentially reshaping the balance of power throughout northeastern Africa for generations. Your choice of husband will signal your kingdom's strategic priorities, influence trade relationships with multiple regions, and determine whether future conflicts involve cooperation or competition with neighboring powers. The decision weighs heavily on your shoulders, though at least you won't have to worry about wedding planning on top of everything else. Your mother finally selects the Ethiopian prince after extensive consultations with advisors, priests, and probably a few fortune tellers, whose opinions she trusts more than she admits publicly. The announcement of your engagement triggers celebration throughout the kingdom, diplomatic correspondence with foreign courts, and frantic preparation for wedding festivities that will demonstrate Kushite wealth and power to representatives from throughout the known world. Your ascension to the throne arrives sooner than anyone expects when your mother dies suddenly during what should have been a routine act. Diplomatic reception with Roman ambassadors. The irony that Queen Amonarinisu survived multiple military campaigns and numerous assassination attempts succumbs to what the court physicians describe as a fever is lost on no one, particularly since Roman guests were present when she collapsed. The transition of power that follows unfolds with the carefully orchestrated precision that Kushite royal protocol demands. Though beneath the ceremonial surface, political tensions simmer like oil waiting for a spark. The coronation ceremony takes place within weeks of your mother's funeral, because vacant thrones invite ambitious relatives and foreign interference with equal enthusiasm. Stand in the great temple of Ammon, wearing the double crown that symbolizes your authority over both Upper and Lower Nubia, feeling the weight of gold and responsibility pressing against your skull. The priests who anoint you with sacred oils speak invocations that connect you to every previous Kushite ruler, creating an unbroken chain of divine legitimacy that stretches back centuries to queens, whose names are carved on monuments throughout your kingdom. Your first official act as queen involves reviewing the contents of the royal treasury with advisors who seem genuinely surprised by your detailed knowledge of economic matters. Years of educational preparation serve you well as you examine tax records, trade agreements, and tribute payments that fund your government's operations. The gold reserves accumulated by previous generations provide a comfortable cushion for your early reign, though maintaining this wealth will require careful management of mining operations and commercial relationships with partners throughout Africa and the Mediterranean world. The military review that follows your coronation reveals both strengths and potential problems within your armed forces. The professional soldiers who form your kingdom's core military units demonstrate impressive discipline and equipment, but their commanders include several men whose loyalty to your family might not survive a serious political crisis. You make mental notes about which officers need closer supervision and which units might require leadership changes before any major military operations become necessary. Diplomatic challenges emerge immediately as neighboring kingdoms. But test your resolve through minor border provocations and delayed tribute payments. The Romans, in particular, seem eager to discover whether the new queen possesses her mother's legendary military skills and diplomatic cunning. Your response strikes a careful balance between strength and restraint, firm enough to discourage further testing, but measured enough to avoid escalating minor disputes into major conflicts that could destabilize the entire region. Your marriage to the Ethiopian prince, postponed during your mother's illness and the succession process, finally takes place in a ceremony that combines Kushite royal traditions with diplomatic kinetic protocol designed to impress foreign observers. The wedding festivities continue for days, featuring elaborate banquets, athletic competitions, and religious ceremonies that showcase your kingdom's wealth and cultural sophistication. Your new husband proves to be a capable advisor whose understanding of regional politics complements your own knowledge of internal Kushite affairs. The administrative challenges of royal governance quickly become apparent as you discover the enormous complexity of managing a kingdom that stretches across hundreds of miles of desert, river valley, and grassland territories. Your daily schedule includes meetings with provincial governors, reviews of judicial decisions, consultations with military commanders, and audiences with merchant representatives whose commercial activities generate much of your government's revenue. The paperwork alone etched on stone tablets, written on papyrus scrolls, and recorded in various languages, threatens to overwhelm even your well-trained administrative staff. Religious duties occupy a significant portion of your time as you serve as the primary intermediary between your people and the gods who protect the kingdom. The festivals and ceremonies that mark seasonal transitions, military victories, and agricultural milestones require your personal participation in rituals that can last for hours. Your role as high priestess of several cults adds spiritual authority to your political power, though it also means that religious conservatives scrutinize your every action for signs of impiety or innovation. The judicial responsibilities of queenship involve reviewing legal cases that local officials cannot resolve independently, settling disputes between powerful families, and occasionally ordering executions for crimes serious enough to threaten royal authority. Your legal training serves you well in these situations, though the emotional weight of making life and death decisions proves it's more challenging than your tutors had prepared you to handle. Historians still argue whether ancient African rulers exercised absolute power or governed through consultation with advisors. But your experience suggests that the reality involves constant negotiation between competing interests. Your first year as queen establishes patterns of governance that will define your entire reign. Careful attention to economic management and gradual implementation of reforms designed to strengthen royal authority without provoking unnecessary opposition. The lessons learned during this crucial period will serve you well during the more serious crises that await in future years. Your honeymoon period as queen ends abruptly when 3 provincial governors simultaneously decide that a young, newly crowned ruler might be easier to manipulate than her famously iron-willed mother. The rebellion that erupts in your second year begins as coordinated tax protests in distant territories, but intelligence reports quickly reveal the deeper conspiracy aimed at replacing you with a more pliable cousin who's been suspiciously absent from court recently. Though the timing is uncoincidental, these ambitious men clearly hope to exploit your inexperience and the natural uncertainty that follows any royal transition. The drought that strikes your kingdom during this political crisis feels like divine punishment, though your astronomers assure you that such periodic dry spells follow predictable celestial cycles rather than supernatural intervention. The Nile's annual flood fails to reach expected levels, leaving vast agricultural areas dependent on stored grain and emergency water conservation measures. Your granaries contain enough supplies to prevent mass starvation, but the economic disruption threatens to undermine royal authority. Just when rebellious governors are testing your resolve through armed resistance, Roman military activity along your northern borders adds another layer of complexity to these domestic challenges. Its increasing numbers of legionary patrols probe your frontier defenses with obvious intelligence-gathering intentions. The Romans haven't declared war, but their training exercises involve suspiciously large numbers of troops positioned uncomfortably close to important Kushite settlements. Your spies report heated debates in Roman political circles about whether to exploit your internal difficulties through direct military intervention or simply wait for the rebellions to weaken your kingdom sufficiently to force diplomatic concessions. Your response to the provincial revolt demonstrates the political lessons learned during years of careful education and observation of your mother's governing style, rather than immediately dispatching armies to crush the rebellion through overwhelming force. You begin with targeted economic pressure designed to isolate the disloyal governors from their supporters. Tax collectors in loyal provinces receive orders to delay tribute payments to territories controlled by rebels, while royal merchants suspend trade relationships that provide essential supplies to rebellious regions. The military campaign you eventually launch against the rebels combines traditional Kushite tactical approaches with innovations adapted from Roman and Ethiopian military practices observed during recent conflicts. Your army moves swiftly along well-maintained roads, bypassing heavily fortified positions to strike at vulnerable supply lines and communication networks that the rebels need to coordinate their resistance. The strategy proves highly effective, though it requires careful logistics planning and the kind of detailed intelligence gathering that your mother spy networks make possible. The siege of the rebel stronghold at Napata becomes a masterclass in psychological warfare as much as military engineering. Your forces surround the ancient city where several previous Kushite rulers are buried, creating a symbolic confrontation between legitimate royal authority and treasonous ambition. The rebels inside the walls face the uncomfortable choice between surrendering to their rightful queen or desecrating sacred burial sites by prolonging a hopeless defense. Public opinion throughout your kingdom strongly favors your position, making continued resistance increasingly difficult to justify. Your handling of the captured rebels balances justice with political pragmatism in ways that impress even cynical court observers. The ringleaders face execution for treason, but their followers receive pardons conditional on future loyalty and payment of substantial fines that help compensate the royal treasury for military expenses. This measured response demonstrates strength without creating unnecessary martyrs who might inspire future revolts, while also showing mercy that encourages other potential dissidents to reconsider their loyalties. The drought management policies you implement during this crisis establish precedents for royal intervention in economic affairs that will influence your kingdom's administrative practices for generations. Emergency grain distribution programs prevent starvation in the worst affected regions, while public works projects provide employment for displaced agricultural workers and simultaneously improve infrastructure that will benefit future economic development. These policies cost enormous amounts from the royal treasury, but they maintain popular support during a period when political stability depends on demonstrating effective governance. Roman diplomatic overtures increase significantly once your successful suppression of the rebellions demonstrates that reports of your political weakness were greatly exaggerated. The same Roman officials who were quietly encouraging provincial revolts now express interest in renewing trade agreements and resolving border disputes through negotiation rather than military confrontation. Your response to these diplomatic reversals reflects careful calculation rather than emotional reaction. You're willing to discuss cooperation, but on terms that recognize your kingdom's strength rather than accommodation born from weakness. Historians still argue whether this early crisis strengthened or weakened your long-term political position. But the successful resolution certainly establishes your reputation as a capable ruler who combines military competence with administrative skill. The lessons learned during these challenging months will prove invaluable during future crises that test your kingdom, as resilience and your personal leadership abilities. Your first major military expedition southward begins 3 years into your reign, when intelligence reports reveal that the gold mines in the distant Butana region are producing less tribute than expected due to raids by nomadic tribes who apparently missed the memo about your kingdom's military reputation. The decision to personally lead this campaign raises eyebrows among some conservative advisors who think queens should stay home and manage domestic affairs. But your mother's legendary military achievements provide precedent for royal women taking active command roles in warfare. The army you assemble for this southern expedition represents the finest military force your kingdom can field. Professional infantry armed with iron weapons, cavalry units mounted on horses bred specifically for desert warfare, the specialized archer companies whose composite bows can penetrate armor at distances that regularly surprise enemy forces. Your war elephants, imported at enormous expense from regions even further south, serve primarily as psychological weapons designed to terrify opponents who've never seen such massive creatures used in combat. The logistics of moving this combined force across hundreds of miles of challenging terrain would impress modern military planners. Your first engagement with the nomadic raiders occurs near an oasis that both sides need for water supplies, creating a tactical situation where retreat isn't really an option for either army. The battle unfolds exactly as your military tutors predicted: initial skirmishing between cavalry forces, followed by a general engagement where disciplined infantry formations prove superior to tribal warriors, who rely more on individual courage than coordinated tactics. Your personal participation in the fighting, wielding a composite bow from horseback, inspires your troops while demonstrating that their queen shares the risks of military service. The siege of the fortified trading post that serves as the raiders' main base reveals interesting details about the economic networks that connect your southern territories with regions beyond your direct control. The goods stored in captured warehouses include ivory from elephants hunted in distant forests, exotic feathers from birds that nest along the upper reaches of tributary rivers, and gold dust from mines that your kingdom doesn't directly control but clearly influences through tributary relationships. Your victory here opens new possibilities for expanding trade relationships with previously unknown partners. The diplomatic negotiations that follow your military success demonstrate the complex relationships between conquest, commerce, and cultural exchange that characterize ancient African politics. Rather than simply annexing defeated territories, you establish a system of tributary relationships that allows local leaders to maintain nominal independence while acknowledging Kushite supremacy and paying regular tribute. This approach proves more cost-effective than direct administration while still providing your kingdom with the economic benefits of expanded territorial control. Your exploration of newly accessible regions reveals natural resources that could significantly enhance your kingdom's wealth if properly exploited. The iron ore deposits discovered in mountainous areas could support expanded weapon production, while new agricultural zones might provide food security during future drought years. The exotic animals captured during this expedition, including several species unknown to Northern Kingdoms, will make impressive gifts for foreign rulers and demonstrate your kingdom's connections to the mysterious regions beyond the desert. The religious ceremonies performed at newly conquered territories blend traditional Kushite practices with local spiritual traditions in ways that facilitate political integration while respecting cultural diversity. Your priests work with local religious leaders to identify common ground between different theological systems, creating syncretic practices that satisfy both constituencies. This approach to religious diplomacy proves highly effective for maintaining stability in newly acquired territories, though it occasionally troubles conservative elements within your own court. The military innovations developed during this campaign include improved siege techniques borrowed from Roman engineering practices, enhanced cavalry, tactics adapted from nomadic warfare methods, and new supply chain management systems that allow your armies to operate effectively at greater distances from established bases. These tactical improvements will prove valuable during future conflicts with more sophisticated opponents, while the experience gained by your officer corps strengthens your military capabilities for years to come. Your return to Meru after 6 months of southern campaigning triggers celebration throughout the capital as merchants, craftsmen, and ordinary citizens benefit from the wealth and exotic goods your expedition has acquired. The victory parade features captured enemies, loaded treasure wagons, and those impressive war elephants that never fail to draw crowds of curious spectators. Benefits of this successful campaign extend far beyond immediate economic gains, establishing your reputation as a militarily competent ruler, capable of expanding your kingdom's power and influence. Historians still argue whether these southern expeditions represented genuine territorial expansion or simply large-scale raiding designed to extract tribute and maintain regional dominance. But the practical results clearly strengthened your kingdom's economic foundation and enhanced your personal prestige throughout the region. The territories and trade relationships established during this campaign will continue, generating revenue and strategic advantages for the remainder of your reign. Your architectural ambitions begin manifesting in your 5th year as queen, when the combination of military victories, tribute payments, and successful trade relationships provides the financial resources necessary for construction projects that will immortalize your reign in stone gold and artistic achievement. The master builders summoned to your court include Egyptian architects familiar with pyramid construction techniques, Roman engineers who understand advanced concrete applications, and local Kushite craftsmen whose decorative skills have been perfected over generations of royal patronage. The pyramid complex you commission for your eventual burial represents the culmination of centuries of Kushite funerary architecture, combining traditional design elements with innovations that reflect your kingdom's unique cultural synthesis. Your pyramid will be smaller than the Great Pyramid of Giza, but more elaborately decorated, featuring interior chambers adorned with religious scenes, painted in pigments that cost more per ounce than most people earn in a year. The astronomical alignments built into the structure require consultations with astronomers, whose calculations must account for celestial movements that woe and complete full cycles for thousands of years. The temple dedicated to Apedmak that you construct in downtown Meru becomes a masterpiece of religious architecture that attracts pilgrims from throughout the region. The massive stone lions flanking the entrance are carved from single blocks of granite transported hundreds of miles from quarries in the eastern desert, a logistical achievement that demonstrates your kingdom's organizational capabilities as much as its artistic sophistication. The interior spaces include chambers for ritual purification, libraries for religious texts, and workshops where priests create the ceremonial objects used in important festivals. Your palace expansion project transforms the royal residence into a complex that rivals anything in Alexandria or Rome for luxury and functionality. The new wing includes reception halls capable of accommodating hundreds of diplomatic guests, private apartments with running water, supplied through ingenious engineering systems, and gardens where exotic plants from throughout Africa create living displays of your kingdom's extensive trade networks. The cooling systems built into these structures use principles of air circulation that woe and be rediscovered by European architects for over a millennium. The public bath complex you construct for the citizens of Meru represents an innovation in urban planning that combines Roman engineering techniques with African architectural adaptations for desert climates. The heated pools are supplied by aqueducts that channel water from Nile tributaries, while the cooling systems use evaporative techniques that maintain comfortable temperatures even during the hottest months. This facility becomes a popular gathering place where merchants, craftsmen, and government officials conduct business while enjoying amenities typically reserved for royal households. Your commissioning of a new royal tomb for your mother posthumously honors her military achievements while establishing artistic standards that will influence Kushite funerary art for generations. The burial chamber features wall paintings depicting Queen Amanirenas' victories against Roman forces, including detailed battle scenes that serve as both historical records and propaganda statements about Kushite military capabilities. The precious metals incorporated into the tomb's decoration consume significant portions of annual gold production. But the political benefits of honoring your predecessor justify the enormous expense. The fortress you construct at Khazar Ibram strengthens your kingdom's northern defenses while demonstrating architectural innovations that blend military functionality with aesthetic considerations. The walls incorporate decorative elements that make this fortification as much a work of art as a defensive installation. While the interior spaces include facilities for extended sieges and comfortable accommodations for the garrison commanders, Roman military observers who visit this installation under diplomatic pretenses express grudging admiration for engineering techniques they hadn't previously encountered. Your restoration of ancient temples throughout your kingdom serves both religious and political purposes, demonstrating respect for traditional practices while showcasing your government's prosperity and organizational competence. The renovation work reveals interesting archaeological evidence about previous Kushite rulers, including inscriptions that provide new information about territorial boundaries and diplomatic relationships with neighboring kingdoms. Historians still argue whether these restoration projects represent genuine piety or calculated political theater, but the practical results clearly strengthen your connections with religious institutions throughout your realm. The artistic workshops established in connection with these construction projects become centers of cultural innovation, where traditional Kushite techniques blend with artistic influences from Egypt, Rome, and regions further south. The craftsmen employed in these workshops develop new methods for working precious metals, create innovative ceramic glazes, and perfect techniques for stone carving that produce uniquely beautiful decorative elements. The artistic styles developed during your reign will influence African art for centuries, though their sophistication won't be fully appreciated until modern archaeologists begin systematic excavations. Your building program requires careful coordination of resources, labor and materials from throughout your kingdom and beyond, creating economic opportunities for countless individuals. While strengthening your government's administrative capabilities, the project management skills developed during these construction efforts will prove valuable during future military campaigns and diplomatic initiatives that require similar organizational complexity. Your kingdom's position at the crossroads of Africa transforms into a commercial empire during your 7th year of rule, when diplomatic marriages, military victories, and strategic infrastructure investments combine to create trade networks that generate wealth rivaling the treasuries of Rome itself. The caravans that traverse your territories carry goods from the Mediterranean world southward into the heart of Africa, while returning north with products that European markets have never seen before. Commercial exchange that places your customs officials in the enviable position of taxing both directions of this lucrative traffic. The gold mines that fund your government's operations produce quantities of precious metal that would make Roman emperors weep with envy. Though the extraction process involves mining techniques that combine traditional African methods with innovations borrowed from Egyptian and Greek engineering practices, your mine supervisors report directly to royal officials rather than local governors, ensuring that production figures remain accurate and that the considerable security requirements for protecting such valuable operations receive adequate attention. The workers in these mines include both free laborers who receive generous wages and prisoners of war whose sentences involve productive service rather than simple incarceration. Your ivory trade relationships extend southward into regions that Roman geographers can only speculate about, connecting your kingdom with elephant hunting territories that produce tusks of exceptional size and quality. The skilled craftsmen who work this ivory into finished products create artistic masterpieces that serve as diplomatic gifts, religious objects, and luxury items for wealthy customers throughout the Mediterranean world. The workshops where this carving takes place employ techniques passed down through generations of Kushite artisans, though foreign influences occasionally introduce new decorative motifs that blend traditional African styles with international artistic trends. The exotic animal trade becomes one of your kingdom's most distinctive commercial specialties. As wealthy Romans develop an insatiable appetite for African wildlife to stock their amphitheaters, private menageries, and elaborate dinner parties where exotic cuisine impresses influential guests, your animal traders capture lions, leopards, elephants, giraffes, rhinoceroses, and various species of antelope that command premium prices in Mediterranean markets. The logistics of transporting live animals across hundreds of miles of desert terrain requires specialized knowledge and equipment that your merchants guard as valuable trade secrets. Your textile industry benefits from access to both traditional African cotton and imported silk that arrives through Red Sea trading connections with merchants from distant Asian kingdoms. The dyes used to color these fabrics include rare pigments extracted from African plants and minerals, creating color combinations that European customers cannot obtain elsewhere. The royal workshops that produce the finest textiles employ weavers whose skills represent centuries of accumulated knowledge. Though innovations occasionally arise from experiments with new materials and techniques introduced by foreign craftsmen, the spice trade flowing through your territories includes products from throughout the Horn of Africa and regions even further south, where plants grow that produce flavors completely unknown to Mediterranean cuisine. Your merchants carefully guard the sources of these exotic spices, maintaining monopolistic control over products that wealthy Romans will pay extraordinary prices to obtain. The spice caravans that traverse your kingdom require armed escorts due to the valuable nature of their cargo, creating employment opportunities for veterans of your military campaigns. Your perfume and cosmetics industry develops sophisticated chemical processes that combine African plant extracts with imported materials to create luxury products that become highly fashionable among wealthy women throughout the Mediterranean world. The crocodile dung beauty treatments that you remember from childhood prove surprisingly popular among Roman customers, who apparently believe that more exotic ingredients produce superior cosmetic results. The workshops that produce these items employ both traditional knowledge and experimental techniques that occasionally yield remarkable innovations. The gemstone trade adds another dimension to your commercial empire. As your kingdom's geological diversity includes deposits of precious stones that skilled lapidaries transform into jewelry and decorative objects coveted by collectors throughout the ancient world. The mining operations that extract these gems require careful supervision to prevent theft, while the cutting and polishing workshops employ artisans whose skills rival those found in any major commercial center. Your personal jewelry collection includes pieces that demonstrate the finest work produced by these craftsmen. Your currency system facilitates all this commercial activity through standardized weights and measures that provide confidence for merchants. Conducting transactions across vast distances and cultural boundaries. The gold coins minted in your royal workshops feature artistic designs that serve as propaganda tools, while maintaining the purity standards necessary for international acceptance. The economic policies that govern this monetary system balance the need for stable currency with the flexibility required for adapting to changing market conditions. Historians still argue whether ancient African kingdoms maintained extensive commercial relationships with distant regions, but the archaeological evidence from your reign clearly demonstrates trade connections that span thousands of miles and involve dozens of different cultures and kingdoms. The wealth generated by these commercial networks provides the economic foundation for all your other achievements as queen. Your religious innovations begin subtly during your 8th year as queen, when the practical challenges of governing a kingdom populated by Egyptians, Nubians, Greeks, Romans, and various tribal groups require theological flexibility that traditional religious authorities find either inspiring or deeply troubling, depending on their personal tolerance for spiritual experimentation. The syncretistic approach you develop combines elements from multiple religious traditions into coherent ceremonial practices that satisfy diverse constituencies, while maintaining the essential royal authority that derives from divine legitimacy. The temple reforms you implement standardized ritual practices across your kingdom while allowing for regional variations that respect local traditions and prevent the kind of religious conflicts that have destabilized other ancient kingdoms. Your priests receive training in multiple theological systems, enabling them to conduct ceremonies that incorporate Egyptian, Nubian, Greek, and even Roman religious elements when diplomatic situations require such cultural sensitivity. This religious flexibility proves particularly valuable during negotiations with foreign powers, whose cooperation depends partly on receiving appropriate spiritual recognition. Your personal devotion to Isis becomes a central element of royal religious practice, as the goddess's roles as protector of royalty, patron of motherhood, and guardian of the dead align perfectly with your responsibilities as queen and eventual ancestor of future rulers. The elaborate ceremonies you perform in honor of Isis attract pilgrims from throughout the region, generating both religious prestige and economic benefits for your kingdom. The mysteries associated with Isis worship provide opportunities for diplomatic networking with Egyptian officials and Greek merchants who share similar spiritual interests. The integration of Apedmak worship with imported religious practices creates uniquely Kushite theological innovations that blend traditional lion-headed war god imagery with Greek concepts of divine justice and Roman ideas about imperial authority. Your priests develop new liturgical texts that explain these theological combinations in ways that satisfy both conservative, traditionalists, and progressive reformers within your religious establishment. The artistic representations of a pedmock that appear in temples constructed during your reign reflect these synthetic religious developments. Your astronomical observations contribute. 2 religious calendar reforms that improve the accuracy of festival scheduling while demonstrating your kingdom's scientific sophistication to foreign observers. The star charts maintained by your court astronomers combine Egyptian, Greek, and indigenous African astronomical knowledge into comprehensive celestial maps that guide both religious ceremonies and practical activities like agricultural planning and military campaign timing. These astronomical innovations influence religious practices throughout the region for generations after your reign. The oracle system you establish provides institutionalized methods for receiving divine guidance on important political decisions while maintaining enough ambiguity to preserve your freedom of action. When circumstances require policies that contradict apparent divine preferences, your oracles receive careful training in diplomatic language and political awareness, ensuring that their pronouncements support rather than undermine royal authority. The reputation of your oracles for accuracy spreads throughout the region, attracting consultation requests from neighboring kingdoms. Your funerary religion innovations address the practical challenges of preparing for royal burial while accommodating the diverse spiritual traditions represented within your kingdom. The texts inscribed in your tomb will include prayers and invocations drawn from multiple religious sources, creating a comprehensive spiritual protection system that covers all possible afterlife scenarios. The mummification techniques employed for your eventual burial combine Egyptian preservation methods with Kushite ritual practices and imported materials from throughout your trade network. The mystery cult dedicated to your mother's deified spirit becomes a focal point for military veterans and government officials who served during her reign, creating institutional continuity between past and present royal authority. The ceremonies associated with this cult commemorate Queen Amenarina's military victories while providing spiritual frameworks for understanding contemporary political challenges. The cult's popularity among former soldiers provides useful intelligence about military morale and potential sources of political support or opposition. Your religious diplomacy extends beyond your kingdom's borders through ceremonial exchanges with foreign temples, sharing of religious texts, and participation in international festivals that strengthen diplomatic relationships through spiritual connections. The gifts you send to Egyptian temples include precious metals and exotic materials that demonstrate your kingdom's wealth, while the priests you exchange with foreign religious institutions serve as informal diplomatic agents who gather intelligence while conducting theological discussions. The theological debates you sponsor attract scholars from throughout the Mediterranean world, creating intellectual forums where religious questions intersect with political philosophy and practical governance challenges. These scholarly gatherings enhance your kingdom's reputation for learning and cultural sophistication, while providing opportunities for recruiting talented individuals who can serve your government in various capacities. Historians still argue whether ancient African kingdoms maintained extensive intellectual connections with classical civilization, but the evidence from your reign suggests that such exchanges were more common than previously recognized. Your religious legacy includes both institutional innovations that will influence Kushite, spiritual practices for centuries, and personal devotional practices that demonstrate individual piety, while maintaining the political authority essential for effective royal governance. Your diplomatic dance with Rome begins in earnest during your 10th year as queen. When a new emperor ascends to power in distant Italia and decides that previous Roman Kushite agreements need renegotiation through a combination of military pressure, economic sanctions, and the kind of diplomatic bullying that Roman officials apparently learn as part of their standard political education. The timing isn't coincidental, Roman intelligence. Networks have been monitoring your kingdom's growing wealth and military capabilities, leading to inevitable concerns about potential threats to Roman interests in Egypt and the broader Mediterranean region. The Roman embassy that arrives in Meru includes enough military advisors to constitute a small army. Though they're technically present as diplomatic security rather than invasion forces, according to the carefully worded credentials presented by the ambassador. Your reception of this embassy balances appropriate hospitality with subtle demonstrations of your own military capabilities, including ceremonial reviews of your professional troops, displays of exotic weapons acquired through southern trade relationships, and those impressive war elephants that never fail to make Roman visitors slightly uncomfortable. The negotiations that follow reveal the fundamental tensions between Roman expansion policies and your kingdom's determination to maintain independence through strength rather than accommodation. Roman demands include increased tribute payments, territorial concessions along disputed border regions, exclusive trading rights for Roman merchants, and restrictions on your military activities that would effectively transform your kingdom into a Roman protectorate. Your response to these demands demonstrates the diplomatic skills developed through years of managing complex relationships with multiple neighboring powers. Your intelligence operations during this period uncover interesting details about Roman internal politics, including factional disputes within the imperial court that influence Roman foreign policy toward African kingdoms. The information gathered by your spies reveals that some Roman officials favor aggressive expansion policies, while others prefer diplomatic solutions that avoid expensive military campaigns in distant territories. This intelligence proves valuable for tailoring your diplomatic strategies to exploit Roman political divisions. The military demonstrations you organize for Roman observers combine impressive displays of Kushite combat capabilities with subtle warnings about the costs that Roman aggression might entail. Your cavalry units perform complex maneuvers that showcase their speed and coordination, while your infantry formations demonstrate discipline and equipment quality that rivals Roman legionary standards. The archery competitions that conclude these demonstrations feature accuracy displays that leave little doubt about your kingdom's defensive capabilities. Your diplomatic gift exchanges with Roman officials reflect careful calculation about demonstrating wealth while avoiding appearances of either submission or dangerous provocation. The presents you offer include exotic animals, precious metals, rare spices, and luxury textiles that showcase your kingdom's commercial connections without revealing military-relevant information about production capabilities or territorial resources. The gifts you receive from Roman representatives provide useful intelligence about Roman technological developments and artistic trends. The border incident that nearly escalates into open warfare occurs when Roman forces accidentally cross into Kushite territory while pursuing bandits who seem remarkably well informed. about Roman patrol schedules and garrison locations. Your response to this provocation balances firm resistance with careful avoidance of actions that might provide Roman officials with justification for larger military interventions. The diplomatic correspondence that resolves this crisis demonstrates both kingdoms' interest in avoiding conflicts that could prove expensive and politically destabilizing. Your trade negotiations with Roman commercial representatives reveal the economic factors that underlie political tensions between your kingdoms. Roman merchants want access to your gold mines, ivory sources, and exotic animal supplies, while your own traders seek entry into Mediterranean markets that Roman officials can either facilitate or obstruct depending on political relationships. The commercial agreements you eventually negotiate provide mutual benefits while maintaining your kingdom's economic independence. The cultural exchanges that accompany diplomatic relations include scholarly visits, artistic collaborations, and technological sharing that benefit both kingdoms despite underlying political tensions. Roman engineers provide advice about construction techniques, while your own specialists offer knowledge about desert survival methods and tropical disease treatments that prove valuable for Roman officials stationed in African provinces. These exchanges create personal relationships that sometimes transcend official diplomatic policies. Your assessment of Roman strengths and weaknesses influences your long-term strategic planning for potential future conflicts or cooperation. Roman military advantages include superior siege equipment, standardized training methods, and logistical systems that support extended campaigns, while Roman disadvantages include unfamiliarity with desert warfare, dependence on expensive supply lines, and political instability that affects military leadership continuity. This strategic analysis will prove valuable during future diplomatic negotiations. Historians still argue whether Romant-Kushite relations during this period represented genuine diplomatic engagement or simply delayed military confrontation. But your successful navigation of these complex negotiations demonstrates the political skills necessary for maintaining independence while managing relationships with more powerful neighbors who possess both the capability and inclination to use military force when diplomacy fails to achieve their objectives. Your family life becomes increasingly complicated during your 12th year as queen, when the combination of royal succession politics, personal relationships, and court intrigue creates the kind of domestic drama that would make modern soap opera writers weep with envy. Your marriage to the Ethiopian prince has produced 3 children whose future claims to the throne must be balanced against the ambitions of your various siblings, cousins, and other relatives who possess their own ideas about rightful inheritance and political legitimacy within the complex web of Kushite royal family relationships. The eldest of your children, a daughter who displays both your diplomatic skills and her father's military interests, becomes the focus of succession. Planning that involves careful consideration of gender roles, political alliances, and the practical challenges of preparing a future ruler for the responsibilities of governing a kingdom that faces constant external pressures and internal tensions. Your daughter's education includes all the traditional royal curriculum, plus innovations that reflect changing political circumstances and the evolving requirements of effective leadership in an increasingly complex world. Your younger son shows more interest in religious studies than political activities, suggesting a future role as a high priest or temple administrator rather than a military commander or diplomatic representative. This religious inclination actually proves politically useful, It provides opportunities for strengthening relationships with conservative elements within your kingdom, who value traditional spiritual practices and might otherwise question royal policies that emphasize international cooperation over cultural isolation. His theological studies include both traditional Kushite religious knowledge and comparative analysis of foreign spiritual systems. The court intrigue that surrounds your family extends beyond immediate succession questions to include broader factional disputes between noble families whose loyalties, ambitions, and personal grievances create ongoing sources of political tension. Your brother-in-law, who married your sister in what seemed like a straightforward diplomatic alliance, has developed unfortunate ambitions that require careful management to prevent family disputes from escalating into broader political conflicts. His supporters include several military officers whose loyalty to your family might not survive a serious succession crisis. Your sister's marriage troubles become public knowledge when she seeks royal permission to divorce her husband on grounds that include both personal incompatibility and political disagreements about appropriate relationships with foreign powers. The legal and religious complications of royal divorce proceedings require consultations with priests, lawyers, and diplomatic advisors who must balance family privacy with political necessity. The resolution of this domestic crisis will establish precedents that influence royal family relationships for generations. Your mother-in-law, the Ethiopian Queen Dowager, arrives for an extended visit that combines family obligations with diplomatic discussions about territorial boundaries, trade agreements, and potential military cooperation against mutual enemies. Her presence at your court provides opportunities for strengthening international alliances while creating domestic complications. As various court factions attempt to influence her opinions about Kushite political affairs, her sharp intelligence and extensive political experience make her a valuable advisor. Though her loyalty ultimately belongs to Ethiopian rather than Kushite interests, the marriage proposals that arrive for your children require careful evaluation of potential political benefits, personal compatibility, and long-term strategic implications for your kingdom's international relationships. Your daughter's suitors include princes from Egypt, Ethiopia, and various tribal confederations, each offering different advantages and disadvantages for future Kushite foreign policy. The negotiations surrounding these potential marriages involve complex discussions about dowries, territorial rights, succession arrangements, and the religious ceremonies that would accompany any eventual weddings. Your attempts to arrange advantageous marriages for your younger relatives create additional complications as various family members express strong preferences about potential spouses, wedding ceremonies, and post-marriage living arrangements. Your nephew's insistence on marrying for love rather than political advantage represents romantic idealism that you find both touching and politically inconvenient. The diplomatic consequences of family marriage choices extend far beyond personal happiness to influence relationships with neighboring kingdoms and internal political stability. The assassination attempt directed against your eldest daughter reveals the extent to which succession politics have created enemies willing to use violence against royal family members. The investigation that follows uncovers a conspiracy involving disgruntled nobles, foreign agents, and religious extremists who oppose your family's relatively tolerant policies toward cultural diversity and international cooperation. Your response to this threat balances justice with mercy in ways designed to discourage future attacks while avoiding the kind of massive retaliation that might create martyrs or provoke broader opposition. Your management of these family crises demonstrates the personal costs of royal authority, as political responsibilities often conflict with maternal instincts and family loyalty. The decisions you make about succession planning, marriage arrangements, and punishment of family enemies will influence your kingdom's future stability and your personal relationships with the people you love most. Historians still argue whether ancient royal families experienced the same emotional tensions that characterize modern political dynasties, but your experience suggests that the fundamental challenges of balancing family and politics remain constant across centuries and cultures. Your later years as queen unfold with the measured pace of accumulated wisdom as your 60th birthday approaches, and the accumulated weight of 3 decades of political decisions, military campaigns, diplomatic negotiations, and family responsibility settles into the kind of philosophical reflection that comes naturally to rulers have survived long enough to witness the long-term consequences of their choices. The kingdom you now govern bears little resemblance to the realm you inherited as a young woman. Having been transformed through your policies, conquests, and innovations into something both more prosperous and more complex than previous generations could have imagined. The physical challenges of aging become increasingly apparent as arthritis affects your sword arm. Your eyesight requires stronger reading glasses for reviewing official documents, and the energy levels that once sustained 18-hour working days gradually decline to more manageable schedules. Your personal physicians, who now include Greek medical specialists alongside traditional Kushite healers, prescribe treatments that combine imported medicines with local herbal remedies in approaches that reflect your kingdom. This characteristic synthesis of diverse cultural influences. The royal diet that sustains your health includes foods from throughout your trade network, though you've developed a preference for simpler meals that remind you of childhood favorites. Your administrative responsibilities increasingly shift toward strategic oversight, rather than detailed management of daily governmental operations. As trusted advisors and experienced bureaucrats handle routine decisions, while you focus on major policy questions and long-term planning, the delegation of authority that this transition requires involves careful evaluation of subordinates' capabilities, loyalties, and potential for independent action that might conflict with royal interests. Your selection and training of capable administrators represents one of your most important legacies, ensuring governmental continuity that will survive your eventual death. The succession planning that occupies much of your attention during these years involves complex negotiations between competing claims, personal preferences, and political necessities that must be balanced to ensure peaceful transfer of power when your reign eventually ends. Your eldest daughter has matured into a capable potential ruler whose education, experience, and political alliances position her well for future queenship. Though various court factions continue promoting alternative candidates whose claims might create conflicts if not properly managed. The legal and ceremonial preparations for succession require consultations with priests, lawyers, and foreign diplomats, whose cooperation will be essential for legitimizing your chosen heir. Your military responsibilities have evolved from personal battlefield leadership to strategic planning and diplomatic oversight of conflicts that your generals can handle without direct royal intervention. The army you've developed over decades of careful attention now operates with professional competence that allows you to focus on larger questions of alliance relationships, territorial priorities, and the resource allocation necessary for maintaining effective defense capabilities. Your final military campaign, a successful expedition against raiders threatening southern trade routes, demonstrates that royal authority remains formidable despite advancing age. The religious duties that have always been central to your role as queen take on deeper spiritual significance. As you contemplate mortality and the afterlife preparations that royal status requires, your tomb construction reaches completion during this period, featuring artistic decorations and religious inscriptions that represent the culmination of Kushite funerary traditions. The theological questions that arise during tomb planning involve complex decisions about burial practices, religious ceremonies, and the spiritual preparations necessary for successful transition to divine status among your royal ancestors. Your diplomatic relationships with neighboring kingdoms reflect the accumulated respect and wariness that 3 decades of successful leadership have generated throughout the region. Roman officials who remember your mother's military victories approach negotiations with your representatives with considerably more caution than they displayed during your early reign, while Ethiopian and Egyptian diplomats seek your advice on regional political developments that might affect their own kingdoms. The network of alliances, trade agreements, and mutual defense treaties that you've constructed provides your kingdom with security and prosperity that should endure. Beyond your lifetime, the economic policies implemented during your reign have created a level of prosperity that transforms daily life for ordinary citizens throughout your kingdom, as improved trade relationships, agricultural innovations, and infrastructure development generate opportunities for social mobility and cultural advancement. The markets in Meru now feature goods from throughout the known world, while the educational institutions you've established produce literate administrators, skilled craftsmen, and knowledgeable merchants whose capabilities exceed those found in many supposedly more civilized kingdoms. Your personal reflections on the achievements and failures of your reign include honest assessments of policies that succeeded beyond expectations, decisions that produced unintended consequences, and opportunities that were missed due to political constraints or personal limitations. The written records you compile during this period will provide future historians with detailed accounts of royal decision-making processes. Though you're careful to present your choices in ways that support rather than undermine royal authority and legitimacy, historians still argue whether your reign represents the height of Kushite power and cultural achievement, or simply a successful period of adaptation to changing regional circumstances. But the evidence clearly demonstrates that your leadership transformed your kingdom into one of the most prosperous and influential powers in ancient Africa. Your preparation for death begins in earnest during your 63rd year, when a persistent cough that refuses to respond to even the most exotic medical treatments available in your kingdom signals the approach of mortality with the kind of inexorable certainty that no amount of royal authority can postpone indefinitely. The physicians who attend you include specialists summoned from Alexandria, Rome, and distant Ethiopian mountain kingdoms, but their combined knowledge proves insufficient against whatever illness has decided to claim a queen whose political enemies never managed to accomplish through warfare, assassination attempts, or diplomatic pressure. The tomb that will house your mortal remains for eternity represents the culmination of decades of artistic planning and religious preparation, featuring interior chambers decorated with scenes from your most significant military victories, diplomatic achievements, and religious innovations. The walls display hieroglyphic texts that combine traditional Kushite funerary formulas with personalized inscriptions, describing your specific accomplishments as queen, creating a comprehensive record of your reign that will inform future archaeologists about the political and cultural developments that characterized your era. The astronomical alignments built into the tomb's architecture ensure that celestial events will mark important anniversaries of your death for thousands of years. Your final administrative acts include the completion of legal documents that formalize succession arrangements, distribute royal treasures among family members and loyal supporters, establish endowments for temples, schools, and public works projects that will continue operating after your death. The complexity of these arrangements requires months of consultation with lawyers, priests, and family advisors who must balance your personal wishes with political necessities and religious requirements. The wealth being distributed includes not only accumulated gold and jewels, but also valuable trade relationships, territorial rights, and diplomatic agreements that represent decades of careful negotiation. The religious ceremonies that prepare your soul for the afterlife. Journey combine traditional Kushite, spiritual practices with innovations that reflect your kingdom's characteristic synthesis of diverse cultural influences. Your priests perform purification rituals that incorporate elements from Egyptian, Greek, and indigenous African theological traditions, creating comprehensive spiritual protection that covers all possible afterlife scenarios. The amulets and magical objects placed in your tomb include items blessed according to multiple religious systems, ensuring that divine protection will be available regardless of which spiritual authorities govern the realm of the dead. Your final audiences with foreign ambassadors provide opportunities for ensuring that diplomatic relationships will continue smoothly after your death, while also demonstrating royal strength and competence to international observers, who might otherwise view succession transitions as opportunities for territorial expansion or commercial advantage. The Roman representative who visits during this period receives assurances about continued cooperation, balanced with subtle warnings about the military capabilities that your successors will inherit. These diplomatic meetings require careful management of your physical appearance and energy levels to avoid projecting weakness that might encourage foreign aggression. The selection and training of tomb guardians involves recruiting loyal soldiers whose service will continue after your burial, protecting your mortal remains and the valuable grave goods that accompany royal interment. These guards receive special religious training that prepares them for the spiritual responsibilities of serving in proximity to divine royal ancestors, while their families receive generous compensation for the sacrifices that such service entails. The security arrangements for your tomb complex include both human guardians and supernatural protections designed to discourage grave robbers and unauthorized visitors. Your final military review demonstrates continued royal authority while providing opportunities for personal farewells to veteran soldiers who have served your kingdom with distinction throughout your reign. The ceremony includes presentations of honors and rewards to officers whose loyalty and competence have contributed to your military successes, while also introducing younger commanders who will serve your successors. The emotional weight of these final meetings with comrades who shared the dangers and victories of multiple campaigns proves more challenging than the physical demands of the formal ceremonies. The completion of your autobiographical inscriptions requires careful consideration of how future generations should remember your reign, balancing honest accounts of challenges and failures with the kind of heroic narrative that royal propaganda typically emphasizes. These texts will serve as primary historical sources for scholars studying your era, though you're aware that political considerations sometimes require diplomatic editing of controversial events or sensitive diplomatic relationships. The literary style you employ combines traditional royal rhetoric with personal reflections that provide insights into the emotional and intellectual challenges of leadership. Your final family gatherings bring together children, grandchildren, siblings, and other relatives for ceremonies that combine emotional farewells with practical discussions about inheritance arrangements, political alliances, and the personal relationships that will continue after your death. These meetings require careful balance between affection and authority, as family members naturally grieve your approaching death while also positioning themselves for advantageous roles in the new political order that will emerge after succession. The private conversations you have with individual family members during this period provide opportunities for final advice, forgiveness of old grievances, and expressions of love that royal protocol typically restrains. The gradual transfer of daily governmental responsibilities to your designated successor involves months of supervised decision-making that ensures continuity while allowing your heir to establish independent authority. This transition process proves more emotionally difficult than the physical challenges of declining health, as letting go of power requires the same kind of courage that acquiring and maintaining royal authority originally demanded.